Hey there, friends. We are here next to the cheese making pot. Can you guess what we're doing today? Well, we are going to work with some cow's milk, making one of my family's favorite cheeses, Queso Fresco. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Angela. Welcome to the downstairs kitchen, where I do all kinds of fun and creative food things. And if you are one of my valued regulars, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here today. So this is where I'm getting the recipe. I purchased this book, I believe, off Amazon. If I did, I'll put a link, but I think you can also get it off a New England cheesemaking company. It's where I get a lot of my cheesemaking supplies and recipes. So I found on page 94 Queso Fresco, and we made that a few years ago. I've had it in the freezer and we have used it. I don't know that it's a cheese that people typically freeze, but it worked for me. I'll just put that caveat out there. We are working with cow's milk today. Those of you who have been around know that I have both cows and goats. And in celebration of June being Dairy Month, I'm hoping to bring you lots of delicious dairy themed recipes. And I do have a playlist. Make sure you go check it out for years worth of butter making and cheese making and yogurt making and all kinds of great things. So make sure you go check that out too. This particular recipe calls for 2 gallons of milk. I'm doubling it. And yes, I double my recipes with cheese making all the time with no troubles. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pull off all the labels of these jars. Each of these jars is a half a gallon of milk, and I am leaving them full fat, but you actually can with both cows and goat's milk. It's much easier with cow's milk to pull off the cream. Do you see that line right here? That's the cream line. And many times I'll make butter and then I'll make cheese with the skimmed milk, but that's not going to happen today. I like to do harder cheeses like a Parmigiano Reggiano or something like that, where I'll even take all of one milk and mix it with another milk, and that's a cheese making journey for another day. Today we're going to be making the full fat Queso Fresco. You know, I really like the added fat in that. You go through all this trouble to make the cheese, you might as well include it if you don't need it for butter making or sour cream or cream cheese or all those other delectable delights that we like to eat too. And all I do here is I make sure that I scrape the jar really, really well, because I want to make sure I get out every little bit of it I can so that we get the biggest yield we can. You can make cheese with simple ingredients. I have a stock pot here. All of my utensils that I'm using today, I make sure they're really good and clean. And I would like to encourage that you do the same thing. You can actually sanitize them by taking the pot, putting boiling water in it, and boiling all your utensils. That it's up to you how you want to do it. Some people use sanitizers and spray it on there. However you want, just make sure that what you're using is clean. Just like when I milk my animals, I make sure that everything that I'm working with is good and clean too. I even like to scrape off the cream because sometimes there'll be a little bit of cream right there on the lid too. So I'm just going to go ahead now that I've got a little bit in there, and I'm going to turn it on about a medium-high heat because we're going to want to bring this cold milk that's been in my refrigerator up to probably somewhere around 98 degrees. We'll double check the recipe here. Good thing I looked. We're going to put it at 90 degrees. But for now, I'm going to shut this off and I'm going to go ahead and get all the rest of the other 3 gallons of milk into the pot. And then I'll be back and show you what I do every single step of the way. So this cheese isn't really considered a soft cheese or a hard cheese in my personal opinion. In the book, let's see if it says, this is Ricky Carroll's book. It's a very good cheese maker to that you can rely on, you know. It says it's a Latin American quick farm cheese made using a variety of methods. The following is a simple technique you can do at home. So this isn't, if you're a cheese maker and you've been doing this a while, you may see how I make this queso fresco and think, well, that's not how I make mine. And I learned that as a cheese maker, that when you think you're making something, there's there is more than one way to make one particular kind of cheese. People will make it their own, I guess, if you will. So just because there's a queso fresco recipe here, it doesn't mean one of my other cheese recipe books will not have it a different way. This is the one I made before. We were happy with it. I'll make it again. But it's kind of a hard cheese because you do get to put it in a form, but yet it's not, so it's not really spreadable, but it's not like a hard cheese that you have to really age for a long time. So this also sets very nicely and very quickly. So we do not have to culture it first. Okay, so we've got our milk and we need to get it to 90 degrees before we add our culture to it. So my little trick is I have this thermometer. I'm going to turn it on, and then I had it set for 93 for another cheese. So I'm going to set it for 90 degrees. And then what I do is I make sure it's down in the milk, and then I will take my lid. Okay. Once I'm on camera, it's going to be way more difficult to do, right? So I'll take my lid and I kind of balance it on here. Oops. But right now my milk is at 62 degrees, so it's going to take a little bit to get to 90 degrees. And because I'm a huge multitasker, of course, I am going to be doing other things, and this will beep at me when it reaches that 90 degrees. You may hear the dishwasher in the background. You may hear the animals in the background. It's just kind of the busy season I'm in, so I apologize for any of that if it may bother you, but it's just what it is. And it's encouraging, I think, to all of you to know that cheese making doesn't have to be so overwhelming, because when I first started, I was so scared and I would just block off the whole day and do nothing. And then I learned, oh, you can do laundry while you make cheese, or you can make phone calls while you're making cheese. Go out and garden for an hour, because you'll find there's places where you stop and don't do anything to it for a little bit, and then you come back to it. I'll be back when this hits 90 degrees. Okay, we have reached our 90 degrees. It should beep at me again. Oh yeah, it's at 92. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna shut off our stove top, and then I'm going to add 1 packet of mesophilic culture. And you can buy these ready, active cultures in individual packets like this. This is made to do 2 gallons of pasteurized milk. But did you know with raw milk, like I'm using today, it can actually culture up to 4 gallons. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. And I'm just going to lightly sprinkle this on the top surface of our milk, and we're going to let this set for 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, now that we've done that, I have myself a slotted spoon, and what I'm going to do is in a up and down motion, we're going to go around the pot, and we're going to stir in this culture. And you can see that the cream has risen back to the top, but it'll work its way back in. And I just want to make sure that that culture gets mixed into the milk. So we can actually now stir it a little bit. At this point, stirring is okay. Later, you'll see we won't want to stir like this so vigorously, but I just want to make sure that this culture is good and stirred in. So now I'm going to move. I have a plate over here that I have my utensils on just to make sure they stay clean. Okay, now it wants me to go ahead and add the rennet. Now, sometimes you will let this sit for like an hour before you add anything. So I had to double check this, but it says step 1, heat the milk to 90 degrees, add the starter and mix thoroughly. Did that. Add the diluted rennet and stir with an up and down motion for 1 minute, and then we're going to let it sit. So let me grab the supplies for the rennet. Dilute the amount of rennet 20 times its volume in water, potable water. Okay, so this is 1/4 teaspoon. Because we're doubling, we'll use 1/2 teaspoon of rennet to 1/4 cup of cool water. Now, I'm going to probably just use the 1/4 cup of cool water because I have found that that works fine. Now, some cheesemakers will tell you, and I have told you in past videos, to use non-chlorinated water. That is your best bet. But I will admit that I have used just tap water and had no adverse effects. But I'm going to suggest that you do what works for you. So now we need to add in 1/2 teaspoon. Where did it? Okay, so I've got my measurements here, and we need 1/2 teaspoon of this rennet. And then I'll stir this really good to make sure that it gets distributed. And then my little trick to you that I like to do is to take my spoon and turn it over upside down, and then I will pour the rennet on that, and it kind of helps disperse it a little bit, and I'll just slowly go around and around. Now this is when you have to be a little more cautious about how you stir, because your curds are going to start setting up very, very quickly. We are going to go slowly up and down for like 1 to 2 minutes, because the curds will start setting, and if you swirl and mix like we did before, then it will kind of disturb, and your curds won't properly set up. So go nice and slow. It's already starting to set up. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to go right in the middle, and I'm going to pull my spoon straight out, and that is it. So now what I'm going to do is put the lid on. Remember, our stovetop is off. So I'm going to take a towel, and we're going to wrap it around our pot. And this will just help to keep that temperature that we want it to be, just keeps it nice and warm. And we're going to let this set for 30 to 45 minutes. Check the curd and see if it'll be ready for us to cut. Okay, friends, it has been, I don't know, I think it was like 45 minutes. And so we are now ready to cut the curds, and you want to do that into 1/4 inch cubes. So these are small curds. I'm going to go ahead and grab this thing here. It's called a curd cutter. I don't know. Years ago, I bought it off of Amazon. I was in a group off of Gavin Weber, and I love his cheese making videos. I get totally inspired by him. And I believe one of his viewers were making these. I don't know that you can get them anymore. But what it does is it will cut the curds this way, which are hard to do. You've got to see this though. So typically I would cut the curd to see if it's ready, but it's very obvious it is, because it is pulled all the way across, pulled away from the sides. Here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down in, and we're going to go ahead and cut it this way. Okay. Maybe these weren't as strong as I thought they were. And now we get a knife, and we're going to cut the curds this way. And this helps you get a lot more curds that are a little more uniform. It kind of wiggles on you. And then I want to go the opposite direction. You're not going to get this perfect. It's just not going to happen that way. But now we actually have small curds. All right. See, there's some here that you're inevitably going to miss a few. And I want to see if we need to let these rest for a little bit. Okay, so we do not let them rest yet. So now what I need to do is we're going to get our thermometer back out. I'm going to turn it on, and we were at 90 degrees. And now I need to reset it. If I can remember how to do this. I want to reset it. We need to go up to 95 degrees over the next 20 minutes. So really, really slowly. We'll take our slotted spoon, and we'll just ever so slightly, every once in a while, kind of stir it. Let me bring you in a little closer again. So you can see some of these curds are too big. So you'll stir, you'll kind of cut up any of these bigger curds. Just kind of go from the bottom to the top every once in a while. And we're checking our temperature, and we're going to slowly get that to rise over 20 minutes. We're just going to kind of gently work with this, because right now your curds, they're actually pretty gentle at this point still. So put this back in. I know there's a better way for me to kind of do this. I can't remember how I used to somehow balance a spoon across there, I think. Maybe that will work better. We shall see. I do not remember how I did this. It's been a few years since I was really good about my cheese making. I used to, a couple summers ago, every week I made a new cheese, and that's kind of was my plan for June. But life kind of has its own plans sometimes. So I'm not sure if that will happen or not. I'm not going to get myself too worked up if it doesn't. So now we shall see if this works. And I just kind of want to keep an eye. See, I'm already at 92 degrees and I haven't even turned on the stove. So I'm probably just going to stir for a little bit and then I'll turn on our stove top and just, you know, slowly every once in a while, I'm going to give this a stir. It doesn't necessarily have to be constant like some of the other cheeses, but you don't want the curds to sink. I hope that makes sense. So I'll see you in about 20 minutes. I kind of get to the point where I do kind of like to just constantly stir. Let's bring you in a little closer. We're halfway or so done. And you can see that the curds have gotten much smaller. They're not, you don't have to be quite as careful with them now. And you just keep stirring and maintaining that, getting up to that 95 degrees and then maintain it there. Don't go any higher. Our timer has gone off and now let's see where we're at. I don't think we ever quite reached the 95 degrees. We just kind of stayed right there at the 91, 92 range. I'll leave the stove on. I turned it up to a 2. And I think I'll go ahead and put the lid on. That's going to help bring up that temperature a little bit. And I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes and we're going to leave this undisturbed because I want all those curds to sink all the way down to the bottom and they might start kind of matting together. Okay, our 5 minutes is up and I don't want to lift this huge pot. So what I have found is I have this well-loved I believe it's a 4 cup measuring cup. And it's plastic, so it's light. I have heavier ones that are glass. And this works really good to just use it like a scoop almost. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want to throw away this whey. We used mesophilic culture, not thermophilic. So an acidic thing would be like if we would have made chev or something, a soft cheese out of lemon juice or vinegar. Or if, you know, a farmer's cheese or something, it's not acidic. So it works really good to go ahead and make ricotta from it. You can make ricotta from your whey. You can also make caramels and all kinds of delicious treats and drinks. And you can freeze them in cubes to put in your drinks. I like to freeze dry it so that it's like and turn it into a powder. You know, people will use whey powder as extra protein to add to things. So you can do all kinds of stuff with it. Now what I've done here is I have scooped darn near all of this out of here. So it's a lot lighter. And I will go ahead and I will pour off the rest. Hopefully you can see me and you see what I'm doing. The reason I'm doing this is because we do not need this whey anymore. So I'm going to take my slotted spoon and kind of hold back this curd mass. I've got a big curd mass in here. And I'm going to get off as much of the whey as I possibly can. But I've got a colander under here just in case. I mean, we're not going to get all of the whey, obviously, but I'm going to kind of do my best. Okay, so now that we've pretty much gotten the majority of the whey out, I am going to transfer these curds back over to our pot. I'm going to take this lid and put it on our whey, set it aside for now, and then you can see there is still some whey, but not all of it. Now what we need to do is salt our cheese curds. So what I have here is actually cheese salt, and we're going to put our 2 tablespoons, which actually it will be 4 tablespoons because remember we doubled this to it's a double batch. 2. Now if you look at the cheese salt, it is very fine, so it won't make big chunks. And what I want to do is I'm going to stir this salt into these curds. I'm going to break this curd mass up. And so now we need to maintain this 95 degrees on these salted curds for about 30 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll come in every little bit and I'll just give this a stir. I'm going to, we're going to steal our lid back here. This one on the one it belongs on. And so over 30 minutes, I'm going to leave this on that low. Let's just, for fun, let's go ahead and see where we're at. We've hit our 94, so we're close. So I'll probably put it down to low instead of 2. Every little bit I'll come stir this over the next 30 minutes. Okay, so it's time to shut the stove off because our 30 minutes has lapsed and we're ready to start pressing our cheese. This is so exciting. If you've never had a cheese that you've pressed, and getting to press it for the first time is so fun and exciting. And I don't forget that process because it's been a while since I've made the cheese, and so it's like the excitement's back all over again. So you will see, now I have quite a bit of whey. I'm going to go ahead and add this to my other whey because when you make ricotta, you add salt to it anyway. So this isn't going to hurt that at all. And again, I'm going to get as much out as I can. That's less mess for me when we go to put it into our molds. So it'll kind of clump together. This is why I put the colander there, because inevitably I'm going to make a mess because, well, it's my kitchen. And if I don't make a mess, something's probably wrong. That's probably pretty good. And again, we'll set this aside, get it out of our way. And it is every cheesemaker's duty to taste her curds, his or her curds. So here we have a curd, and now we taste it. If you've never had a fresh cheese curd before, I encourage you to do that. It is absolutely nothing like the stuff that you buy in the store. When it is still warm, gets a little bit squeaky. This one wasn't really super squeaky, but it is delicious. I'm trying to gauge whether or not I'm going to need 2 or 4 molds. I cannot remember. So I have these plastic molds. They have drainage on the bottom, and then what I have here is a nice sturdy cheesecloth. And I am going to start ladling in these curds. I'm hoping I can get this into 2 or 4. I'm not sure what I'll end up with. So we'll start with this. Here's one, and you kind of get in there and you break up your curds. You can use your spoon, you can use your clean hands, whatever you're comfortable with. You want to get that nice and full. I'm going to start a second one now. It all depends on the size of your mold and how much milk you used on what you should expect to get. Usually I plan on about 1 pound of cheese per gallon, but it's not always that way. Whey, get it? Whey? So many times I might think typically this would be 4 of them. I think we're going to be with 3, and I'm okay with that. So let's see here. I could, of course, divide this out evenly into 4 molds if I wanted to, but I'm thinking these must be, I can't remember, maybe they're 1.5 pound molds. And what I did here is I just wanted to make sure I didn't have one huge clump. You kind of want a mass. And now I'll go back through and try to make sure I've done this evenly. Now what I will do is I will fold over the cloth onto our cheese curds. And what I have over here is a press, and I can fit 2 of these in there. This is my topper. So let's see. Oh, I need to move that up. All right, let's see where we're at. Now, yep, I can get that in there. Put our second one in there. And because the whey will be leaking out, I want to put a tray underneath it. First, I want to make sure that my bottoms are snug. Okay, so we'll have this here. Oh, you know what, guys? We might get lucky. I might be able to fit a 3rd one in there. Oh boy, guys, we can. Just barely. I fit 3 in here. Yay, lucky day. So we fit 3 in there. And what I'm going to do is just where it's kind of level, I will twist this down. And this is just to kind of hope that things will stay level. Many times they don't. They just don't. I hate that, but it's just what it is. So this could be a nice press if you wanted, but they want you to have 35 pounds pressure. So in order to know that I get that, what I use is just weights that I've wrapped in plastic. So that's a 20. This is a 10. So there's my 30 pounds of pressure. And I probably could stop there, but these are 2 pounds each. So I do go ahead and add them just because I have them. So that's close to my 35 pounds. So now that will need to press for about 6 hours. It's not a cheese that they said that you needed to flip or anything. We will see what it looks like in close to 6 hours. It's that time of day where I may actually decide that I want to go ahead and just let it go all night. We shall see. It may be tonight, it may be tomorrow. We'll see how the day goes. All right, it has been 5.5 hours and I'm calling it. Isn't this terrible? I don't have the patience. I'm tired and I have somewhere to be tomorrow and it's going to be an early day. So we're going to go ahead and pull it out. Half hour early. It's getting a good press. I think we're going to be fine. Now this recipe says to store it in the refrigerator for a couple, up to a couple weeks. I usually go ahead and freeze it, but I needed to show you. It's all matted together, nice and tight. Typically, I like to flip them over and press them again so you don't have these jagged edges, but I don't want to over press it. So I've decided what I'm going to do is go ahead and put it in. This is, I believe, some sort of a meat tray, actually. And we're going to let it set in the refrigerator for a day because it still feels a little wet to me, but I think it needs to be a refrigerated cheese. So we're going to flip it and then I'm going to put this screen on it just to kind of make sure we have a little airflow since we have 3 of them and they feel about right to me, honestly. So I think we're good, other than I don't want it to be too wet to package. So I think we're going to do that. And then we can put on the lid and I'll put this in the refrigerator and I'll probably let it set in here like this, maybe even 24 to 48 hours because I've got another cheese in the corner that then I'll be coming back for to do its next step. So into the refrigerator this goes before we vacuum seal it.